My name is Reynaldo Rey, for short, and at 34 years old I never imagined my tech success would turn my family into financial parasites. That day in the Bahamas, watching my father sip the overpriced cocktail I paid for while telling me I didn't deserve this vacation because I took a work call, something inside me finally snapped. After years of funding their lives, paying off their debts, and being treated like nothing but a walking ATM, I made a decision that would change everything. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment, letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up to family that took you for granted. I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood in South Boston where money was always tight but pride ran deep. Our 2-bedroom apartment housed 4 of us in cramped quarters that always smelled like my mother's discount laundry detergent and my father's cheap beer. We weren't poor enough for assistance, but never comfortable enough to relax about bills. My father Marcus worked construction when his back wasn't acting up, or when he hadn't blown his paycheck at the tracks. He had strong hands calloused from labor that could build anything, but could also slam doors and walls when the horses didn't run fast enough. The gambling wasn't a secret, but it was never acknowledged as a problem. It was just Dad blowing off steam, according to my mother. My mother Elaine kept our family functioning as the school secretary at the local elementary. She managed our dwindling finances with the precision of someone accustomed to stretching dollars past their breaking point. Emotionally, she was like a closed book with a few pages missing present, but never quite available when it came to affection. The calculator and checkbook were her constant companions at our kitchen table, her face illuminated by worry lines as she performed monthly miracles making numbers work. Then there was my older sister Natalie, the golden child. 3 years my senior and somehow exempt from the financial responsibility that would later become my permanent burden. She got the first new clothes, the dance lessons, the college application fees without question. When she needed money for prom, it materialized despite bill notices piling up on the counter. My younger brother Kyle completed our family dynamic as the baby who never quite had to grow up. 2 years younger than me, he skated through life with a charming smile and a remarkable ability to avoid consequences. When he wrecked his first car at 16, my parents took out a loan to replace it. When he failed classes, they hired tutors they couldn't afford. And then there was me, middle child, eternal responsible one. I started delivering papers at 11, stocking grocery shelves at 14, and working kitchen prep by 16. I saved obsessively, hiding money in a hollowed-out copy of The Great Gatsby, because I'd learned early that cash left visible had a way of disappearing into family emergencies. Ray's good with money became family shorthand, for Ray will bail us out. The pattern established itself early, and without my conscious permission. By high school graduation, I'd saved enough for 2 semesters at Boston University to study computer science. I worked 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a 3.8 GPA, morning shifts at a bakery, weekend inventory at an electronics store, and night help desk at the university computer lab. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but education was my escape route. The pattern of financial extraction began during my sophomore year when my father's truck broke down. Just until next payday, he promised, when borrowing $800 from my tuition savings. Next payday became next month, became forgotten entirely. I covered the shortfall by taking extra shifts and eating ramen for weeks. Then came my mother's root canal, Kyle's first apartment security deposit, and Natalie's maxed-out credit cards. Each emergency presented to me with a mixture of shame and expectation, always with promises of repayment that never materialized. I graduated with honors and significant debt despite my constant work. The loans were mine, but the degree became the family's collective achievement. "We all sacrificed for your education," my mother reminded me regularly, conveniently forgetting the nights I'd stumbled home at 2 a.m. from closing shifts while they slept. My first real job came at a Boston tech startup paying $45,000 annually, a fortune in my family's economy. I found a tiny studio apartment but delayed moving when my mother pointed out how much the family needed my contribution to household expenses. 6 more months under their roof meant 6 more months of family taxes, as I privately called the constant requests for financial help. When I finally moved out, the distance was physical but not financial. The calls continued. Kyle needed bail money after a bar fight. Dad needed dental work insurance wouldn't cover. Mom's car died on the highway. Each crisis delivered with increasing expectation rather than appreciation for my help. The opportunity in Silicon Valley came as both professional salvation and familial complication. The salary jump to $90,000 should have meant freedom, but my family experienced it as a windfall for their benefit. The distance meant they couldn't see my small apartment or ramen dinners as I continued saving and sending money home. California must be treating you well became their code for you can afford to help us more. Distance didn't decrease their expectations, it only removed any remaining hesitation in asking. Without seeing my actual circumstances, they imagined me living in luxury while they struggled creating a narrative that justified their growing demands. By my 28th birthday, I had unwittingly become the family bank, a role I accepted with growing resentment but continued loyalty. Every promotion, bonus, or raise became not my achievement, but the family's expanded resource. The dynamic was set, the pattern established. I was the responsible one, the successful one, the one who would always provide. What I didn't realize then was how this pattern would continue to escalate until that breaking point in the Bahamas with my father's casual cruelty over a drink I had purchased, finally forcing me to see what my life had become. My career trajectory took a significant turn when I met Samuel Chang during a tech conference in San Francisco. He was brilliant, driven, and saw potential in my coding abilities that even I hadn't recognized. After 3 intense conversations over conference coffee and 2 follow-up video calls, we decided to combine our complementary skills. Samuel had the venture capital connections. I had developed an innovative algorithm for predictive data analysis that could revolutionize how companies processed customer information. We founded Raymar Solutions, combining our names in a literal garage, fulfilling the Silicon Valley cliché with pride. The first year was brutal, 18-hour days, surviving on instant noodles and determination, pouring every cent of our savings into development. We couldn't afford proper office space, so we worked from Samuel's cousin's garage in Palo Alto, setting up shop between stored holiday decorations and camping equipment. My family viewed this entrepreneurial phase as a concerning career detour. You had a stable job. Why risk everything on something that will probably fail? My father questioned during our weekly calls. My mother was more direct. Does this mean you can't help with Kyle's community college tuition this semester? Every conversation circled back to what my career choices meant for their financial security, never about my dreams or ambitions. 18 months of near poverty and relentless work finally paid off when Cortec Industries, a Fortune 500 company, signed a contract worth $1.2 million for our customer prediction software. That single contract changed everything. Suddenly we had validation, revenue, and visibility in the industry. The next 3 years brought explosive growth. We moved from the garage to real offices in San Francisco's tech district, hired 28 employees, and expanded our client list to include 3 international corporations. By my 32nd birthday, my personal net worth had climbed into the millions, though much remained tied up in company equity. I purchased my first real home, a modest 3-bedroom house in a good San Francisco neighborhood, for $1.4 million. It was more than my parents' home cost many times over, but actually quite reasonable for the area. The day I got the keys, I sent pictures to my family, feeling proud of this tangible symbol of success. Their reactions were telling. My father immediately asked if this meant I could finally help them upgrade to a better home. My mother wondered about the guest room and how long they could stay when visiting. Kyle asked if I could co-sign for his new apartment application, since I obviously had credit to spare. No congratulations, just immediate calculation of how my achievement translated to their benefit. The requests escalated in both frequency and magnitude. When Natalie announced her engagement to Patrick, a pharmaceutical sales rep with impressive debt of his own, she called me directly rather than our parents. "We're thinking about a waterfront ceremony at the Ocean View Hotel," she explained excitedly. "Mom and Dad said to discuss the budget with you since you're doing so well now." I found myself funding a $40,000 wedding without being consulted on any decisions, just receiving bills with expectant notes attached. During the reception, Natalie tearfully thanked our parents for making this special day possible in her speech. My contribution received a quick mention alongside thanks to the caterers. 3 months after the wedding, Kyle wrapped his car around a tree while driving intoxicated. Miraculously, He wasn't seriously injured, but faced DUI charges and a totaled vehicle. Dad called at 3 a.m., not to inform me of Kyle's safety, but to request $22,000 for legal fees and a replacement car. He needs reliable transportation for work. Dad insisted, though Kyle had been between jobs for 8 months. When my father turned 60, he announced his retirement from construction despite having minimal savings and a mortgage with 15 years remaining. "My back can't take it anymore," he explained during a family dinner I was visiting for. "Besides, you're making enough for all of us now." The statement was delivered with a casual certainty that left me speechless. His retirement plan had apparently always been me. My mother developed arthritis that made her school secretary job increasingly difficult. When I suggested she apply for disability benefits, she looked offended. Why would I deal with government paperwork when you can help? The medical bills for specialists and treatments not covered by insurance appeared in my email regularly, often accompanied by unrelated requests for household improvements or vacation funds. By this point, I was spending over $60,000 annually on family support mortgage assistance for my parents, apartment rent for Kyle, credit card payments, for Natalie medical bills, car payments, and endless emergency requests. The numbers were staggering when I finally calculated them, but saying no felt impossible. Family takes care of family was the constant refrain whenever I hesitated. The pattern had become so normalized that I barely recognized its toxicity until I met Amanda through a friend's dinner party. Smart, independent, and refreshingly direct, she noticed things about my family dynamic that I'd been conditioned to accept. After witnessing my mother call 3 times during our second date, each call about a different financial emergency, Amanda asked the question no one had ever posed. "Does your family always treat you like their personal bank?" Her observation pierced through years of conditioning. "They're just going through a rough patch," I defended weakly, though the patch had lasted my entire adult life. "From what you've told me, they've been going through this patch since you got your first job," Amanda replied gently. "Have you ever considered that helping them might actually be hurting them?" I dismissed her concerns, initially insisting she didn't understand our family history or my responsibility as the successful one. But her questions planted seeds of doubt that grew with each new financial demand from my family. Was I really helping or enabling destructive patterns? Was their love conditional upon my financial support? These questions lurked beneath the surface, waiting for the catalyst that would force me to answer them honestly. That catalyst was already approaching in the form of a tropical vacation that was meant to be a generous gift but would instead become my breaking point. Amanda's gentle questioning about my family's financial dependence evolved from occasional comments into deeper conversations as our relationship progressed. After 6 months of dating, during a quiet dinner at her apartment, she suggested something that initially offended me. "Have you ever considered talking to someone professional about your family's financial dynamics?" she asked, refilling my wine glass. "My friend saw a financial therapist when she was dealing with similar issues with her parents." "Financial therapist," I laughed. "That sounds like something rich people invented to feel better about their wealth." But the idea lingered, and after another midnight call from Kyle needing bail money for a friend, I found myself researching the concept. Dr. Melissa Thornton's office was nothing like I expected. No leather couch or judgmental stares, just a comfortable room with practical advice. "Financial enabling often masquerades as generosity," she explained during our 3rd session. "The difference lies in outcomes. Does your support create independence or reinforce dependence?" The question haunted me as my 34th birthday approached. I'd been reflecting on my achievements: a successful company, financial security, a loving relationship, yet family interactions still left me drained and resentful. On impulse, I decided to make a grand gesture that would either heal our dynamics or force them into the open. "I want to take my entire family to the Bahamas," I told Amanda over dinner. "A luxury vacation where they can see I'm happy to share my success when it's my choice, not when I'm manipulated or guilted." Amanda looked skeptical. "That's very generous, but do you think it will change the underlying patterns?" I wanted to believe it would. I spent weeks planning the perfect trip, 7 days at the Blue Waters Resort in Nassau, a 5-star property with private beach access, multiple pools, and every amenity imaginable. The total came to nearly $25,000 for flights, accommodations, and prepaid activities for my parents, Natalie and Patrick Kyle, and his current girlfriend Jasmine plus Natalie's 2 children. The excitement when I announced the trip during a family video call seemed genuine. Mom cried happy tears, Dad boasted about his son the big shot, and Natalie immediately began researching designer swimwear. Kyle asked if jet skis would be available, already planning adventures before thanking me for the invitation. Our arrival at the resort set the tone for what would follow. After the private shuttle delivered us from the airport, we were greeted with welcome cocktails and cool towels in the marble-floored lobby, overlooking turquoise waters. These rooms are nice, but do they have any oceanfront suites available? My father asked the check-in staff before I'd even presented my credit card. My son here wouldn't want us having second-best accommodations. The staff glanced at me uncertainly. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but nodded, authorizing the upgrade for my parents' room at an additional $300 per night. Within hours, Natalie had also negotiated an upgrade, insisting her children needed more space to play. Dinner that first night totaled over $900, with my father ordering 50-year-old scotch and my brother selecting the most expensive seafood tower for the table. I said nothing, handing over my credit card with a smile that felt increasingly strained. This was my gift, after all. I wanted them to enjoy themselves. Make sure to tip generously, my father instructed loudly as I signed the receipt. We want them to know we're not just regular tourists. The "we" struck me as peculiar since I was covering all expenses, but I added a 20% tip without comment. By the second morning, a pattern had emerged. My family would gather for breakfast, which they charged to their rooms rather than joining the complimentary buffet I'd arranged, plan their activities without consulting me, then disperse to enjoy the resort's amenities, all while continuing to run up charges on my master account. "Ray, can you watch the kids for a few hours?" Natalie asked on day 2. "Patrick and I want to do the couple's massage, and the resort childcare is ridiculously expensive." I agreed despite having planned to catch up on some work emails, and spent the afternoon chasing her 4-year-old and 6-year-old around the pool deck while trying to monitor my phone for important messages. Kyle and Jasmine returned from the resort boutique with shopping bags filled with designer items. "They just added to the room, right?" Kyle confirmed casually. "I got you a keychain as thanks." The keychain, I would later discover when reviewing charges, cost $12. The shopping spree totaled over $2,000. My parents spent most days by the main pool, my father establishing a routine of starting with mimosas at breakfast and progressing to increasingly expensive cocktails throughout the day. My mother alternated between napping under an umbrella and complaining that the resort was too crowded with tourists. "For what you're paying, I expected more exclusivity," she remarked, apparently unaware that she was among those same tourists she disdained. "And the pillows in our room are too soft. Can you ask them to bring firmer ones?" By the third day, I was exhausted from managing everyone's expectations and expenses. A message from Samuel alerted me to a potential problem with our newest client implementation, something requiring immediate attention if we wanted to prevent system failures for a major customer. "I need about 3 hours to resolve this work issue," I announced to my family as they lounged by the pool after lunch. "Our biggest client is experiencing technical difficulties." "Seriously? We're on vacation." Kyle protested, looking up from his phone where he'd been doing absolutely nothing productive. "Some of us have actual responsibilities," I replied more sharply than intended. "The company that pays for all this requires occasional attention." I retreated to my room and spent the next 3 hours in intense video conferences with our technical team resolving the crisis before it impacted the client's operations. Relieved but drained, I changed back into swim trunks and returned to the pool area where my family continued their relaxation as if no time had passed. My father was on his 4th or 5th cocktail of the day, his face flushed from alcohol and sun. He barely acknowledged my return, too engaged in loudly sharing opinions about politics with uncomfortable nearby guests. My mother was flipping through a magazine, occasionally signaling a server for more iced tea. Natalie and Patrick were nowhere to be seen, but their children were now being watched by Kyle's girlfriend while Kyle dozed in a lounger. I ordered a sparkling water and sat on the edge of my father's lounger. "Crisis averted," I said, attempting to reconnect. "The client system is back up and running." My father took a long sip of his golden-colored cocktail, an expensive aged rum, the pool menu listed at $32 per glass. He looked at me with slightly unfocused eyes and said the words that would ultimately change everything between us. "People like you don't deserve vacations anyway," he slurred, gesturing vaguely toward me with his glass. "Always working, always worried about money. What's the point of all your success if you can't even enjoy it? We're the ones making the most of this trip." The statement hung in the air between us, stunning in its casual cruelty and obliviousness. In that moment, surrounded by luxury, they hadn't earned drinking premium alcohol on my dime. He had the audacity to suggest I was the one with unhealthy priorities. I felt something shift inside me, a tectonic movement of long-suppressed resentment, finally breaking through the surface of my dutiful son facade. The confrontation I'd been avoiding for years was now unavoidable, set in motion by those thoughtless words over a drink I was paying for. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice quieter than the storm building inside me. Part of me hoped I'd misheard, that the ocean breeze had distorted his words into something more hurtful than intended. My father took another sip, ice cubes clinking against glass. "I said people obsessed with work like you don't know how to enjoy vacations." He gestured expansively at the resort. "What's the point of all this if you're just going to be on your laptop? We're the ones actually appreciating it." The collective we again, as if they were doing me a favor by consuming my generosity. "Dad, who do you think paid for all this?" I asked, still maintaining a calm I didn't feel. "The work you're criticizing is what makes this vacation possible." "Oh, here we go," he rolled his eyes dramatically. "Mr. Successful is reminding us peasants of our place again." He looked toward my mother for support. She nodded sympathetically at him, not me. "Ray, your father just means you should relax more. You've always been so intense about work." Intense about work. The phrase triggered memories of nights studying while they watched television, mornings delivering papers while they slept, years of sacrifice they'd reframed as a character flaw. "Intense about work is why we're sitting at a 5-star resort, instead of you worrying about next month's mortgage," I replied, feeling the dam of restraint beginning to crack. My mother's expression hardened. "That's uncalled for. We supported you throughout your education." Supported me. The question emerged as a disbelieving laugh. "Mom, I worked 3 jobs through college while sending money home. What support are you referring to exactly?" Kyle stirred from his lounger, sensing drama. "Bro, chill out. They gave you a roof over your head. Why are you being so ungrateful?" Ungrateful. The accusation hit like a slap. I stood up, needing physical distance before responding. "Kyle, in the past 5 years I've paid your rent 14 times, bailed you out of jail twice, replaced 2 vehicles, and covered legal fees that exceed what most people make in a year. Tell me again about my ingratitude." "That's different," Kyle dismissed with a wave. "That's just family helping family. You're the one with all the money." "Family helping family," I repeated. Interesting how that help only flows in one direction. My father struggled to sit upright, sloshing his drink. "Now you're keeping score. That's what's wrong with you, Ray. Always calculating, always counting dollars instead of blessings." "I'm not keeping score," I said. "But I am noticing patterns. Like how none of you have said thank you once for this entire vacation. Not when I booked it, not when we arrived, not for the room upgrades or excursions or anything. We shouldn't have to thank you for doing what family does," my father declared with drunken certainty. "That's your obligation as the successful one." There it was, the entitlement laid bare. My success wasn't mine. It belonged to the family collective. My achievements weren't personal. They were resources to be distributed. Natalie and Patrick chose this moment to return from wherever they'd been sensing tension from 20 feet away. "What's going on?" Natalie asked, looking between our father's flushed face and my rigid posture. "Your brother is complaining about having to work during vacation, and then turned it into a tantrum about money," my mother explained, completely rewriting the last 5 minutes. "Seriously," Natalie sighed dramatically. "Can we have one family gathering without you making it about your success?" The mischaracterization was so complete, so divorced from reality, that I actually laughed. "That's an impressive revision of events, Mom. Dad just told me I don't deserve this vacation that I paid $25,000 for, but somehow I'm the one making it about money." $25,000, Patrick whistled, speaking for the first time. Damn, that's almost as much as we're planning to spend on our kitchen renovation. Something about his phrasing caught my attention. Planning to spend with what money? An awkward glance passed between Natalie and Patrick. Well, Natalie hesitated. We were going to talk to you about it later this week when you were relaxed. We found this amazing contractor, but with the kids' private school tuition this year. The pieces clicked into place. This vacation wasn't just a family gathering, it was an opportunity for a new round of financial requests. They'd been buttering me up, or at least enjoying my generosity before making their asks. So that's what this trip is to you. A chance to soften me up before asking for more money. I looked around at their faces, searching for any sign of shame or self-awareness. Don't be dramatic, my mother scolded. Natalie just needs a little help, like we all do sometimes. A little help, I echoed. Let's talk about a little help then. I turned to the server hovering nearby, uncomfortable with our increasing volume. Could I get an itemized list of all charges to my rooms since check-in? While waiting, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, scrolling through recent transactions. Did you know I addressed my family collectively, that in the past decade I've provided over $300,000 in little help to this family? Silence greeted this figure, broken only by the server returning with printed sheets detailing our vacation charges thus far. I scanned the pages, feeling my blood pressure rise with each line item. Kyle, why are there 4 separate clothing store charges on your room, and what's this island excursion for $600? Kyle had the decency to look uncomfortable. Jasmine wanted to go shopping, and I thought it would be cool to surprise everyone with a private boat tour tomorrow. Without asking me first, just charging thousands to my account. You're making a scene, my mother hissed, looking around at nearby guests. I continued reviewing the charges. Dad, there are 38 cocktails on your room bill in 3 days. 38. At an average of $25 each. My father shrugged unapologetically. It's an all-expenses-paid vacation, isn't it? Why are you nickel and diming us now? Because you just told me I don't deserve to be here. I finally raised my voice. You're drinking nearly $1,000 in alcohol that I'm paying for while criticizing me for working to afford it. Patrick shifted uncomfortably. Look, Ray, we all appreciate your generosity. Do you? I interrupted. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like entitlement, not appreciation. It looks like I'm expected to fund everyone's lifestyle while receiving criticism rather than gratitude. We're your family, my mother said, as if those 3 words explained and justified everything. Yes, you are, I agreed. Which makes this pattern even more painful. Families should support each other emotionally, not just extract financial resources. Oh, so now we're parasites, my father stood unsteadily. After everything we've done for you, the question hung there, so disconnected from reality that it crystallized everything wrong with our dynamic. In their narrative, they were still the providers, the supporters, the ones making sacrifices despite years of evidence to the contrary. What exactly have you done for me recently, Dad? I asked quietly. Name one thing in the past 5 years where you've supported me rather than the reverse. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing emerged. That's what I thought, I said, gathering the charge sheets in my phone. This vacation was a mistake. Not because I don't want to share my success with you, but because you've come to expect it without appreciation or reciprocity. So what now? Natalie demanded. You're just going to storm off because Dad made one comment. It wasn't one comment, I replied. It was the comment that made me finally see clearly. This isn't a healthy family dynamic. It's financial exploitation dressed up as family obligation. The truth of my words hung in the air between us, undeniable yet unacceptable to them. I could see the moment they realized I was serious, that something fundamental had changed, and their expressions shifted from indignation to the first flickers of concern. Not concern for my feelings or our relationship, but for the financial implications of my awakening. The calculation was visible on their faces. What would this cost them? That realization was the final confirmation I needed. What I had planned as a generous family vacation had revealed the true nature of our relationship, and there was no unknowing what I now understood with painful clarity. As my family processed my words, their reactions confirmed everything I'd finally acknowledged. My mother's face showed calculation rather than emotional hurt. Kyle's expression reflected panic about potentially losing his safety net. My father's indignation carried no remorse, only affront at being challenged. Natalie was already forming arguments to preserve access to my resources. In that moment of clarity, Dr. Thornton's words from therapy echoed in my mind. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're the foundation of healthy relationships. I took a deep breath and made a decision that had been years in the making, though I hadn't known it until now. I'm setting some boundaries effective immediately, I announced, my voice steady despite my racing heart. This vacation is paid through completion, including your rooms and the meal plan. However, I'm removing additional charging privileges from all your rooms. My father's face darkened. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious, I replied, then turned toward their beach bags piled on nearby loungers. Dad, I need your wallet. The hell you do, he sputtered. The additional room key card in your wallet is linked to my master account. I'm removing it. You can pay for your own drinks from now on. When he refused to comply, I simply reached over and took his wallet from the side pocket of his beach bag where he always kept it. His protest died as nearby guests turned to watch our confrontation. I removed my credit card, the authorized card I'd given him for emergencies, only 3 years ago, that had since been used for everything from golf clubs to casino visits. I also took the room key card linked to my account. What are you doing? My mother demanded as I repeated the process with her bag, retrieving another of my credit cards I'd nearly forgotten about. Creating necessary change, I answered, moving methodically to collect all room key cards. You can still access your rooms with your main keys. You just can't charge to my account anymore. Kyle stood up, suddenly alert. Bro, let's talk about this rationally. We're past talking, I interrupted. I've been financing your lifestyle for years while you've shown zero progress toward independence. That ends today. I pulled out my phone and called the resort's front desk, walking several steps away for privacy. This is Reynaldo Martinez in the Ocean Suite. I need to remove charging privileges from all connected rooms immediately and restrict charges to my room only. After confirming details and ignoring my family's protests, I completed the financial segregation. When I returned, the collective shock had transformed into varied tactics to regain control. My mother's eyes filled with tears, a strategy that had worked reliably throughout my childhood. How could you embarrass us like this, after everything we've sacrificed for you? What sacrifices specifically, Mom? I asked calmly. Name them. Her tears halted momentarily as she struggled to formulate a response. We always believed in you. Believing in someone costs nothing, I noted. I needed actual support. My father opted for intimidation, moving closer with the rigid posture that once terrified me as a child. You? Ungrateful little, he began, but I interrupted. I've been grateful for opportunities you never provided, I said evenly. I'm no longer grateful for exploitation. There's a difference. Natalie attempted reason. Ray, you're overreacting to one thoughtless comment. Dad didn't mean anything by it. We all appreciate everything you do for us. If you appreciated it, you wouldn't expect it, I countered. Appreciation includes respect for boundaries and recognition of generosity. I've seen neither from any of you. Kyle, most desperate due to his complete financial dependence, switched to panic. What am I supposed to do? I can't afford this place on my own. I don't even have enough cash for meals for the rest of the week. The meal plan I prepaid covers breakfast and dinner, I explained. You'll manage lunch. Consider it your first step toward financial independence. As they processed the immediate consequences of my decision, I walked back to my room, hands shaking but resolve strengthening with each step. Once inside, I called Amanda. I did it, I said when she answered. I finally set boundaries. Are you okay? She asked, concern evident in her voice. I'm somewhere between terrified and liberated, I admitted. But I know it was necessary. I'm proud of you, she said simply. What happens now? I'm changing hotels, I decided in that moment. They can stay here, it's paid for, but I need separation to maintain these boundaries. While packing my belongings, the expected barrage began. Text messages, calls, and eventually knocking at my door. I ignored them all until my suitcase was ready. Then, opened the door to find my entire family gathered in the hallway. We need to talk about this reasonably, my mother insisted, having composed herself. "We've had years to discuss this reasonably," I replied. "You weren't interested until the money stopped." "Where are you going?" Natalie demanded, noticing my packed bag. "To another hotel. I need space." "You're abandoning us here?" Kyle asked incredulously. "Abandoning you at a luxury resort with prepaid accommodations and meals," I clarified. "Yes, I'm forcing you to survive such hardship." My father, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. "If you walk out that door, don't expect things to go back to normal when you cool off. Family remembers who stands by them and who doesn't." The attempt at reverse psychology was transparent, but his words contained an unintended truth. Things would never return to normal, and that was exactly what I needed. "I hope family does remember," I agreed. "I'll remember being told I don't deserve a vacation I paid for. I'll remember decades of financial support met with entitlement rather than gratitude. I'll remember this moment when I finally respected myself enough to say, 'Enough.'" I wheeled my suitcase past them toward the elevator, turning back briefly. "The rooms are paid through Saturday. Checkout is at 11 a.m. Transportation to the airport is arranged. I've done my part one final time." As the elevator doors closed on their protests, I felt a complex mixture of emotions, guilt and relief, battling for dominance. The guilt was old programming, the voice of family obligation trying to reassert control. The relief was newer, fragile, but growing stronger with each minute of enforced boundary. I checked into the Palmetto Bay Resort, 3 miles down the coast. Less luxurious, but peaceful. That first night alone, I sat on my balcony, watching waves crash against the shore, experiencing my first taste of freedom from financial exploitation disguised as family duty. My phone buzzed constantly with messages ranging from angry accusations to desperate pleas, but I maintained my distance physically and emotionally. This boundary wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my sense of worth, beyond what I could provide. Sleep came fitfully that night, but when morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: the lightness of making choices solely for my own well-being, without calculating their impact on everyone else's expectations. The remainder of my time in the Bahamas passed in stark contrast to those first 3 days. While my family continued their vacation on my dime, albeit with restricted spending, I experienced a different kind of freedom at my new hotel. I swam in the ocean at sunrise, read books without interruption, and even made friends with a retired couple from Seattle who invited me to join them for dinner. My phone became a battlefield of emotional manipulation. The messages poured in, cycling through predictable patterns. First came anger. "How dare you abandon your family like this, Dad?" Then guilt. "I cried myself to sleep last night thinking about how we failed you." "Mom," followed by minimization. "You're overreacting to one little comment made after a few drinks." Natalie. And finally, naked self-interest. "Dude, I literally can't get home without your help. The airline wants $300 to change my ticket." Kyle. I responded only to Kyle's practical concern, arranging for his return flight to remain as scheduled, but otherwise maintained my silence. Each unanswered message strengthened my resolve rather than weakening it. On the 4th day, my hotel room phone rang. They had tracked down my location. I didn't answer, but the front desk called to inform me my brother was in the lobby, asking for my room number. I declined the connection, but agreed to meet him in the public restaurant area. Kyle looked disheveled when I found him at a corner table, his usual confident facade cracked by genuine worry. "The others don't know I'm here," he admitted immediately, "but I need to understand what's happening. Are you really cutting us off completely?" "I'm establishing boundaries," I corrected. "There's a difference." "What kind of boundaries?" His question revealed his primary concern: the financial implications. "Going forward, I'll help with true emergencies after careful consideration. No more automatic bailouts, no more living beyond your means on my credit, no more treating me like a resource rather than a person." He fidgeted with a napkin. "So you'll still help sometimes. That's what you took from this conversation. Not that you need to become financially independent, or that our relationship needs to be based on more than money." His silence was answer enough. "Kyle, you're 32 years old with no savings, no career direction, and no apparent concern about either. I've enabled that by constantly rescuing you from consequences. That stops now not to punish you, but because continuing would hurt both of us. What am I supposed to do? He asked, genuine fear in his voice. What everyone else does, get a stable job, live within your means, build your own life. I softened slightly at his obvious distress. I believe you're capable of more than you've shown. You've never had to prove it because I've made it too easy not to. He left shortly after, promising to think about things, though I was uncertain whether any real reflection would occur. When I returned home to San Francisco after the vacation, the real work began. My family's tactics escalated as they realized my boundaries weren't temporary. Natalie posted vague social media updates about family betrayal and showing true colors when money's involved. Friends and extended family who only knew her version called to express concern about my breakdown. My father took a more direct approach, showing up at my company's office unannounced one Tuesday afternoon. Our receptionist called me clearly uncomfortable with his insistent presence in the lobby. When I came down to meet him, his opening words made his purpose clear. We need to discuss your retirement contributions. Not my well-being, not our relationship, my retirement contributions to him. There's nothing to discuss, I replied calmly. I'm no longer financing your retirement. After everything I've done for you. His voice rose, drawing attention from employees passing through the lobby. This is how you repay raising you. Doing the basic legal minimum required of a parent isn't a loan that children must repay, I said quietly. I've already repaid any actual investment you made in me many times over. So that's it. You're abandoning your family obligations. I'm redefining them in healthier ways I corrected. I'll always care about you, Dad, but I won't bankroll lifestyles none of you have earned. He left in a fury of slammed doors and muttered curses, but the confrontation strengthened my resolve rather than weakening it. My mother opted for medical manipulation. 2 weeks after I returned, she called sobbing about chest pains and potential heart problems. I expressed genuine concern and offered to help find specialists, but not to pay their fees outright. When I suggested applying for available healthcare assistance programs, her symptoms mysteriously improved. Natalie expanded her campaign, telling family friends I had mental problems and was turning against the family. She spread rumors that my success had changed me conveniently, omitting how she had benefited from that success for years. I consulted with Jacob Friedman, a financial advisor specializing in family wealth dynamics, bringing documentation of all loans and gifts to my family over the years. The total shocked even me, nearly $320,000 over 7 years, not including the recent vacation. This isn't sustainable financial planning, Jacob noted gently. Even with your income level, this pattern would eventually compromise your own security. Dr. Thornton helped me process the guilt that surfaced, despite intellectual certainty about my decisions. The discomfort you're feeling isn't evidence you're wrong, she explained. It's the expected response to changing long-established patterns. Your family programmed those guilt buttons very effectively. The most difficult test came when my mother left a voicemail about needing surgery for her worsening arthritis. Her message carefully emphasized pain rather than financial need, but the implication was clear. I called her doctor directly with her reluctant permission and discovered the procedure was both elective and covered by her insurance with a manageable copay. When confronted with this information, she admitted manipulating the situation. I didn't think you'd help otherwise, she justified. You've become so cold about money lately. It's not about the money, I tried explaining for the dozenth time. It's about honesty and manipulation. I would have supported you through a necessary medical procedure regardless of my new boundaries. Then why check up on me, she demanded. Because trust has been broken, I answered honestly. It will take time to rebuild. 4 months after the Bahamas incident, I made the difficult decision to temporarily cease all contact with my family. Their escalating manipulation tactics were affecting my mental health, my relationship with Amanda, and even my work performance. I sent a clear email explaining I needed space to heal and would reach out when ready. The response was predictable accusations of cruelty, emotional abandonment, and selfishness. But for the first time, I recognized these reactions as attempts to regain control rather than genuine emotional responses to losing connection with me. Thanksgiving arrived, the first major holiday of my self-imposed family separation. Amanda and I planned a quiet dinner at home, but I felt the absence acutely despite knowing it was necessary. The expected guilt spiral was interrupted by an unexpected call from my cousin Marcus, whom I hadn't spoken with in years. "I heard what happened," he said after initial greetings. "Natalie's been telling everyone you've lost your mind and abandoned the family." I braced for more guilt, but his next words surprised me. "I wanted you to know. I think you're doing the right thing. They've been taking advantage of you for years. Everyone sees it except them." His validation was like a key unlocking a door I hadn't realized was still partially closed. Someone from within the family orbit understood. I wasn't crazy or selfish. I was establishing necessary health. "Thank you," I said, emotion making my voice rough. "That means more than you know. Families should lift each other up, not drain each other dry." Marcus continued. "Your success should be celebrated, not exploited." After we hung up, I felt a shift in my perspective. I wasn't just running from toxic patterns. I was creating space for healthier connections with people who valued me beyond my financial utility. That Thanksgiving, smaller than planned but infinitely more peaceful, became a turning point. I realized I was building a chosen family around me. Amanda, supportive friends, colleagues who respected my boundaries, even distant relatives like Marcus, who understood healthy family dynamics. The financial freedom from supporting multiple adult dependents allowed me to explore more meaningful forms of generosity, establishing a scholarship fund at my alma mater, mentoring young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, contributing to causes I believed in. Giving from choice rather than obligation revealed the true joy of sharing resources. My company continued thriving, and Amanda and I grew closer through the crisis, her unwavering support demonstrating what healthy partnership looked like. The contrast with my family's conditional affection couldn't have been more stark or educational. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time in my adult life, I was walking it on my own terms, free from financial exploitation disguised as family obligation. 6 months after that fateful day, in the Bahamas, spring arrived in San Francisco, bringing cherry blossoms, warmer temperatures, and unexpected developments in my family situation. The distance I had maintained proved transformative, though not in ways I could have predicted. The first surprise came from Kyle. A brief text message one Tuesday morning read simply, "I'm 1 month sober, starting therapy next week. Not asking for anything, just wanted you to know." I stared at those words for several minutes, searching for the hidden angle, the disguised request for funds that usually accompanied any positive news from my brother. Finding none, I replied with genuine support. "Proud of you. That takes real courage." 3 days later, he called. Our conversation revealed that my withdrawal of financial support had forced a reckoning he'd avoided for years. After failing to find another safety net, he'd hit rock bottom, spending 2 nights in his car when he couldn't make rent, a humbling experience that finally motivated change. "I realized I'm 32 with nothing to show for it," he admitted. "No savings, no career path, no self-respect. I've been a parasite, and not just to you." He had found work as a barista and enrolled in a computer coding boot camp, living in a shared apartment with 3 roommates. For the first time in his adult life, he was fully supporting himself, struggling but managing. "It's hard," he confessed, "but also, I don't know. Satisfying. I bought groceries with money I earned last week, and it felt different than when you gave me cash. Better somehow." "That's self-respect," I told him. "It's worth more than any amount I could have given you." 2 weeks later, we met for coffee, my first in-person contact with any family member since the vacation. The changes in Kyle were subtle but significant: clearer eyes, more direct conversation, an absence of the nervous energy that had always accompanied his financial manipulations. "I owe you an apology," he said, after we'd settled at a corner table. "Not just for the money, though, that's a big part of it. I'm sorry for never seeing you as a person, just as a resource." His therapy had apparently been effective in fostering this insight. We talked for nearly 3 hours, establishing the foundation for a relationship based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. My parents proved more resistant to change. My father maintained rigid indignation for 4 months, sending occasional text messages oscillating between self-pity, enjoying your success, while your father can barely afford his blood pressure, medication, and anger. No real man. Abandons family responsibilities. My mother took a different approach, sending care packages with my favorite childhood cookies and notes reminiscing about simpler times, never acknowledging the pattern that had led to our estrangement. The emotional manipulation was familiar, but less effective from a distance. The breakthrough came unexpectedly through their church. Pastor Williams, who had known our family for decades, reached out to me directly after hearing increasingly concerning comments from my parents during counseling sessions. They came seeking validation that you were in the wrong, he explained during our phone call. Instead, I suggested they might consider their own role in the situation. Your father didn't take it well initially. After several counseling sessions, however, a shift began. Pastor Williams had challenged their entitlement directly. If Reynaldo worked for any other employer for 20 years, would he be expected to support them in retirement? Why do you believe your adult son owes you his earnings? The question apparently triggered genuine reflection, particularly for my mother. Her next letter included a tentative acknowledgement I never considered that you might feel used rather than needed. That was never our intention, though I'm beginning to see how our actions appeared that way. It wasn't a complete awakening, but it was a start, the first crack in a lifetime of entrenched expectations. My father's journey proved longer and more difficult. His identity had been so thoroughly wrapped in patriarchal provider myths that my financial success had threatened his sense of manhood, leading to resentment disguised as parental authority. His attempts to control my resources were attempts to control the narrative of our family to maintain his position at the head despite contributing the least. 5 months after our separation, he left a voicemail that revealed the first signs of change. I've been thinking about what you said, about appreciation versus expectation. I'm not good at this stuff, but I'm trying to understand. Natalie remained the most resistant to our new dynamic. Her social media campaign against me continued sporadically, though, with diminishing support as others recognized the pattern. When her kitchen renovation plans stalled without my funding, she blamed me publicly for abandoning family obligations. The turning point in our fractured relationship came through her children, my niece and nephew, whom I genuinely missed. For their sakes, I cautiously agreed to attend my nephew's 8th birthday party, establishing clear boundaries with Natalie beforehand. I'll come bearing appropriate gifts, I emailed, but I won't discuss financial matters or the past. This is about celebrating Jeremy, nothing else. The party was awkward but civil, with Natalie maintaining cool politeness. The breakthrough came afterward when I overheard her husband Patrick confronting her. Ray was generous with the kids and respectful to everyone. Your portrayal of him as some heartless monster doesn't match what I just saw. This outside perspective seemed to penetrate where my words couldn't tend. 2 weeks later, she sent a brief but significant text. I've been unfair. Can we talk sometime? Our subsequent conversation revealed how thoroughly she had embraced the family narrative of entitlement. I honestly believed you owed us because you had more, she admitted. I never questioned why that would be true. Progress with my family came gradually, with occasional backsliding into old patterns. I maintained firm boundaries while leaving room for evolving relationships based on healthier dynamics. With Dr. Thornton's guidance, I developed written agreements for any future financial assistance. Clear terms, repayment expectations, and consequences for manipulation. The formality wasn't punitive, but clarifying, removing the ambiguity that had allowed exploitation to flourish. For my niece and nephew, I established education funds they could access at 18 with clear guidelines preventing parental redirection of the funds. This allowed me to express generosity constructively while teaching financial responsibility. My relationship with Amanda deepened through this period of family reconstruction. Her unwavering support during my most difficult decisions contrasted sharply with my family's conditional affection. When she proposed during a weekend hike to our favorite viewpoint, our conversation naturally included explicit financial boundaries for our future marriage. I want a partnership, not a dependency, she emphasized. We build together, protect each other, but maintain individual strength. As summer approached, I organized a carefully structured family dinner, the first since our vacation confrontation. The location was neutral, the expectations clear. No financial discussions, no dredging up past grievances, just an attempt at connection without transaction. My father arrived first, visibly uncomfortable but making an effort. When the check came at the end of our meal, he reached for it, a small gesture but symbolically significant. The amount was minimal compared to what I had provided over years, but the meaning was immeasurable. For the first time in our adult relationship, he was giving rather than taking. "I can't change the past," he said awkwardly, as we walked to the parking lot afterward. "But I'm trying to understand the present better. Some wounds healed faster than others. Some trust would never fully restore. Some family members adapted to our new dynamic more successfully than others. I accepted that relationships exist on a spectrum of health and closeness, and not all would return to idealized closeness. What emerged from the ruins of financial codependency was something more authentic, connections based on genuine care rather than utility, interactions chosen rather than obligated, boundaries respected rather than exploited. The most profound change occurred within me. I no longer measured my worth by my financial utility to others. My generosity became a choice rather than an extraction, allowing me to experience the true joy of giving without resentment. On the anniversary of our Bahamas confrontation, I found myself on another beach, this time with Amanda, watching waves crash against Northern California shores. The parallels were striking: sun, sand, ocean, but the emotional landscape couldn't have been more different. "Do you regret it?" Amanda asked, knowing the significance of the date, setting those boundaries even though it was painful. I considered the question seriously. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the years of enabling that made it inevitable. But the boundaries themselves, they saved me. Possibly saved all of us from continuing a destructive pattern. The journey from financial exploitation to genuine connection remains ongoing, with progress measured in small moments, rather than dramatic declarations. Family healing follows no timeline but its own, moving at the pace of the slowest member's willingness to change. What I know with certainty is that worth transcends wealth, that generosity without boundaries becomes servitude, and that family at its healthiest uplifts rather than extracts. Sometimes the most loving action is establishing limits that allow everyone to grow into their best selves. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones who took your generosity for granted? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life lessons about family finances and finding self-worth beyond what you provide to others. Remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the healthiest outcomes. Thank you for listening to my journey from exploitation to empowerment. I hope it helps someone else find the courage to value themselves enough to say enough.